Today we're going to go quickly through looking at the Industrial Revolution, some very basic points of it. Now the beginnings are in 1700s in Great Britain, and they lead the way in the Industrial Revolution. It's where it begins. And also, this is where you see the birth of power-driven machines. So pretty much this is the start of everything we see as the modern world, for especially our conveniences like cars, clothing, anything like that. It starts here, the mass production of it. Now, this time there are several factors of production that go into making really anything. The first one is government, and that's where in Britain the government was on board with this, and they passed laws very favorable to business, and this was to help keep their businesses in Great Britain ahead of any other country when they start developing, such as France or Germany. Agriculture is another one, and new inventions help create a larger agricultural output, so we're producing more food. Seed drills, improved livestock breeding, and the enclosure movement all add to this increase in the food supply, which in turn increases population. The third, we have land, and these are any natural earth-made resources, so water, coal, iron. And water specifically is used to generate power, and this starts powering factories. They start using coal for fuel burning, and the iron you harvest out of the ground is a natural resource you use for machine parts. The fourth is labor. Now, with the agricultural improvements, the food supply has increased, the population has increased, and tied into that, the enclosure movement gobbling up small farms into big ones has displaced all these farm families, so now people are moving into the cities to work in these factory jobs that are now being created. And lastly is capital, and these are the human-made parts of an operation. Specifically money here, financial capital, to invest in a business, to build more businesses, and also the human capital, the training and worker skills you develop really even today for any job. High school, college, workers training are all human capital examples. Some inventions, we have first up the seed drill, invented by Jethro Tull, and what it does, it just simply plants seeds in very quick and even rows as opposed to a person throwing out seed by hand. Next we have the cotton gin. Eli Whitney invented this to make the process of cleaning cotton easier. So now instead of having to waste time picking out the seeds by hand, this machine does it yourself, so you can easily pick the seeds out, put it in a bushel, and it's sent it to a factory mill to make clothing. Some others we have here are the spinning jenny, the spinning frame, and the flying shuttle. All these things are inventions that build on one another to make the clothing industry, the textile industry, faster and easier, and clothes now are mass produced and they become cheaper, and the quality does improve. Another invention is the steam engine, invented by James Watt, and this is actually still a working steam engine in Great Britain. Now this next man is Samuel Slater. Great Britain was very peculiar about sending off their ideas to people. They knew they had something special leading the way in this Industrial Revolution, so they tried to keep everything in their country, especially the design for their factories and the machines that are in their factories. What Slater does, he has a photographic memory, so he memorizes how to make these machines, travels over and builds the first mills in America after memorizing the machinery plans in Britain, which it was illegal to actually take the machines or the plans out of Great Britain. He just memorized it to kind of skirt the law. Now in America and England you have factories now. They're powered by water. The conditions are very dangerous. Children, very young children, 8, 9, 10, 12, are now employed. They're working in these conditions. But it also creates a larger middle class because some of these factory jobs pay very well, so now people are moving out of poverty. And also it produces mass-produced goods, especially when we get the assembly line later with Henry Ford, and this brings prices down because the quantity and supply increases to meet the demand. Now, like I mentioned, the harsh conditions, it's a very, very bad place to work. At these turn of the century or 18th century factories, conditions are harsh, unsafe. People lose fingers, hands, get injured and killed in accidents. These force workers to join together in labor unions for collective bargaining to try to get safer conditions, to get higher wages that they deserve. And one of the ways to get these things of higher wages and improved conditions were strikes. And in an organized strike, they stop working, it grinds the factory to a halt, and it's a way to try to force management to meet these conditions they need. Now lastly, the positives and negatives. Three big positives are the increased production of goods, which increases the availability of goods, and then the prices decrease. You see this with the automobile at the turn of the 20th century. The assembly line created increased production, made the car more available, it drove the price down so almost anyone could afford a Model T. Some negatives are the harsh and unsafe conditions in the factories. I mean, like I said, it's not uncommon for people daily to die, lose fingers, lose eyes, get burned, very serious things. There's also the pollution that results from these factories, and you start seeing this in Great Britain and Europe and in America today, and you can still tell factories produce runoff waste, and they're still polluters. Also, child mortality is increased because people are working in factories, and even the pollution caused by them is starting to cause diseases, black lung, and it's spreading amongst people. And also one is the end of cottage industry, which are homemade items. So instead of your clothing being made at home, you are buying it from a textile mill or from a store who has bought it from a textile mill. So that was the Industrial Revolution in a short recap.